Jacqueline, welcome to the show, Jesse Ray Growth House Podcast. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I always love to kind of do an intro on how I meet amazing guests and have them come on the show. One of our dear friends, Blair, introduced us, and you guys actually met at a masterminds, which I'm a huge proponent of masterminds, communities, and getting around like-minded people. So we can definitely dive in and talk about that. But people want to know about you. So Jacqueline, where are you at currently? What does life look like? And then we're going to take a step back on that entrepreneurial journey and how you got from where you were to where you are now. So give the people kind of just like an idea of what you do and what life looks like for you.
Sure. So I'm the founder and CEO of IDL Diamond Club. I started it about 7 years ago. And so what it is high-end matchmaking. We help successful singles to find love and relationships. We work with executives, some high-profile gentlemen, and some celebrities. And then we also throw events and retreats to help people find their ideal partner.
I love that. And right off the top, I just have a question about, this in this industry is so fascinating to me. Do you see a lot of people who are high achievers, very successful? Do you see it where they kind of have a one track focus on business, maybe finance, and then they leave a lot of other things to the side, and one of them being relationships?
Yeah, I definitely see like a lot of my clients, they're really busy and I'll be getting them matches in Dallas and matches in LA and because they're just traveling all the time and really focused on their business. But it's really hard. They can get a lot of dates, but it's really hard to find a relationship when you're like super, super focused in your business. So you have to have a balance.
I love that. We're going to dive into that. I got so many questions. I'm someone single as well, so maybe I'll ask some personal advice. But
Sure.
let's take a step back. Jacqueline, how did you get into this industry? What were you doing before? And let's start there.
Sure. So my background is I was an actress. So I moved to LA when I was like 21. I did, a bunch of little TV shows here and there. And I ended up working with a matchmaker when I was single. And so I kind of learned the industry from being a single girl. And I literally said yes to everybody. I went on a gazillion dates. And my own experience kind of led me to that. And I realized, okay, this acting is kind of like, I don't know, self-absorbed, and it wasn't really fulfilling me anymore. So I started getting into like dating coaching, relationship coaching, life coaching. And everybody was like, okay, can you match me? Like, can you hook me up with your friends? And I was like, oh, okay, well, this just makes sense. So that's kind of how it led to this.
That's amazing. In those first, couple years starting off, what did that look like? Because I know a lot of people, it is not instant success typically, but it sounds like you were already doing some coaching. It was a natural progression to then be like, yeah, I'm going to add matchmaking to this. And then it seems like now that's the sole focus. Is that true?
Yeah, so I actually started the business when I got pregnant. So I started working for another matchmaking agency, and they were really shady, to be honest. And so they would have like, do not call, we owe him money. And I was like, ooh, this doesn't feel congruent at all. So after about like 3 months of working there, I was like, okay, I can start my own business. I'm going to do this. So I had like my coaching, and I also did hypnotherapy as well. So I was like, I'm going to bring some of this in, but do the matchmaking. And I started with one client, and he was like 70, and I was literally like looking for women for him all across the country, and I ended up finding him somebody, and so that worked. And then it grew really, really fast, and we soon became like nationwide, and I had to hire employees, and it just started to boom.
Wow. And then for your clientele, how do you typically find your clientele, or do they reach out to you? I know, visibility is a huge thing, marketing and branding for you. So what was the ways that you're able to attract these clients, especially early on?
Yeah, so I would throw events. So when I threw my first event, I was able to get a lot of clients that were like, okay, I'll come to an event, I'm going to try this out. And then they ended up signing up. So the events happened to be very, very successful, and referrals. So once I got like somebody into a relationship, they would send me all their friends. And another way is like when I first started, I literally reached out to my ex-boyfriends. My husband hated that, but it worked. And like a lot of them signed up. And then I hired a sales girl who reached out to all of her ex-boyfriends, and then they all signed up. So it was just like
This
everyone's
sounds messy.
ex-boyfriend. Yeah.
That's hilarious. And then what's the like clientele look like typically? Is it because you mentioned someone who's 70 years old, is it mostly people who are looking for dates, looking for long-term relationships, looking for marriage? Because there's so many different ways that relationships work, especially in 2024. So what are the people that reach out to you? What are they typically looking for?
All different types. So I've had clients as young as 21. I've had clients as old as 80. Everybody's looking for something different. A lot of people come to us looking because they want to get married, they want to have kids. A lot of people, this is their second round to like go around. They were married, they're divorced now, and now they want like a long-term relationship. Some of them want to have more kids, some of them absolutely don't. It just really depends on the person.
Hmm. And then we're gonna dive right into it, Jacqueline. I'm someone who just asks direct questions, so you could be like,
Sure.
"Hey, I want to skip this one," but for me, what's something that you see time and time again, and you're working with, let's say, a male client, and you're like, "Oh my goodness, you don't realize this is a red flag." So, what are some red flags that these men potentially don't realize they're putting out there?
Um, I mean, I think a big red flag that I see that these men are putting out is they have really unrealistic expectations. Like, okay, let's be real. All women and probably men too, like Photoshop their pictures, they do the filters, and then these guys have this unrealistic opinion of what a woman looks like, and like nobody looks like, not even the supermodels look like that. And they have these, and they just think like, oh, okay, I have money, she's gonna want to be with me. And it's like, no, like I think a really big part of attraction is I think a lot of guys think like, oh, girls don't care about attraction. Men do, but women don't. Absolutely not. We care. Yeah.
Yeah. So you would say one of the main red flags is the unrealistic expectations, especially with social
Yeah.
media, with the filters, with everything. Is like people don't really look like on how they do on Instagram or any of their photos, and that's so true. It's a reality, and I always talk about how even just in the world of entrepreneurship and in business, we always project a highlight reel. Whenever you're looking at Instagram, like that's not someone's real life. Like there is stuff that people don't share that go on behind the scenes. So I totally hear you on that. And I guess one of the things I like to, dive into, especially when we're talking about your early come up story of building this company, what were some things that maybe you're like, ooh, that didn't go right, or some people call it a failure. I always like to say it's a learning lesson. So what were some of the things early on where you're like, I tried this, didn't really work, but I learned from it? Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, totally. So when I first started doing these events, I used to be a Kundalini yoga teacher. So I had this like giant gong. I still have it. And I would do like the speed dating, and I'd have the gong, and I'd be like, ding, everybody switch partners. And people were like, I had everybody wearing name tags like they were at some sort of, whatever business retreat or whatever it was. And people didn't like that. And I realized, okay, people want to be at a luxury event. They don't want to be at like a meeting or speed dating thing. Like people don't like that. And so I quickly 86'd it.
That's so funny because I'm doing a high end mastermind at the end of this month, and I'm like, I don't like name tags. Like, we're getting rid of these name tags. Sure, it is like helpful to know people's names. I'm still trying to figure out a little workaround, but yeah, you're so right. Like, it just feels like that passing business cards back and forth, instead of a true, genuine connection that you're able to build with these people in the room. And for you, the events and the speed dating. That's a great
Yeah.
point. What do you think about? Actually, let me ask you this. As you help a client, what's some of the first, steps that you talk to them about to actually find their ideal match and what they're truly looking for? Because I think a lot of people, including myself, I don't have clarity on what type of woman I want. For me, I'll just kind of, put myself out there. for a long time, I was like, hey, I want this ambitious and power couple, and she's got to be as motivated as me and has her own business going. And then I'm like, wait, do I actually really want that? Like, I'm still trying to figure out who is that ideal partner for me. So I guess for you, for that question would be, what are some things that you kind of walk people through to have them understand what they're looking for? And do you see that happen a lot where they don't really know what they want?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is people all have their values, right? Their qualities that you're looking for in a partner. So the first thing I do is I have people go through their top 8 values. Like what's really important to you. So I know when I was single, my values were so misaligned. Like for I was single for a long time because my values were so misaligned. I was like, "Oh, I want somebody handsome, rich, and funny." Okay, great. Like I met a bunch of handsome, rich, funny douchebags, and like I would just have these like literally these relationships would last like a month, 2 months, and I was like, what's going on? Like why are my relationships not lasting? And then when I before I met my husband, I started getting really, really clear. And I was like, okay, no, that's not what I want. I want somebody who's loyal. I want somebody who's ambitious. He doesn't have to be rich, but like he needs to be like working on it, trying to be successful. I need somebody who's, you know, capable of love and wants to have a family because I really wanted to have kids. And so then when I realigned my values, it worked. And so I think that's a really big thing. And that's what I try to work with all my clients on is like, let's get clear. What do you want? Intuitively, I think you probably do want a power couple. I do. I think that probably is important to you because you probably are really into entrepreneurship. And I'm just doing a reading on you. I don't know if this is
I
right.
love this.
But like, I feel like, yeah. So I feel like you're going to talk about like your entrepreneurship and all that. And you're going to, if she's not interested, she's going to be bored by that. But it would be cool if you could find a girl that is also like an entrepreneur and like into her business. And then maybe you could even collab together on some level and be a power couple. So that's just my intuitive reading for
I love it.
for
Hey,
today.
any other readings, just throw them in there. I'll totally accept them. And
Okay.
I think you're right. From where I'm at right now, I think you're right. Talking about these events that you throw, because I'm so curious about what does that look like, and also we already talked about the men. Obviously, demographics all over the place. Different age ranges, but all of them have that. Highly successful in whatever aspect of life. For the women, how do you attract the women? Because here's a very general thing out there, and maybe I have a misconception. These are maybe young women who are just looking for a rich guy. Can you break that perception that potentially I have and a lot of other people might have about this industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing is to these successful men, like, let's be real, they want an attractive woman. And I feel like there's so much emphasis put on looks, and it just is part of the way it is. That being said, there are a lot of women out there that really want a real relationship and they really want to find a great guy that they can have something serious with. And then yeah, there is a lot of women out there that are looking for a sugar daddy, and that's fine. And let them do that and enjoy that. And like I don't judge at all. I think it's totally fine. But like ideally for our clients, that's not really what they're looking for.
Hmm. And like you said, it's more so like, hey, looking to settle down, marriage is more so for your clients.
Right, right. And then something that I'm actually getting into that I'm really excited about is so I'm getting more into like the retreat space. So I'm doing this ride or die retreat for men where they're going to come, they're going to, get some dating coaching, NLP, body language, so that like if a girl isn't into you, like don't go in for the kiss. Like you're going to mess that up, right? And also like I'm adding in like I used to really be against like the pickup artist culture, but I think there is some good parts to it, but we want to make sure that it creates a lasting relationship. So like talking to women and seducing a woman is actually a good thing, but we just want to make sure we're not doing that to 100 different women. So that's what their retreat is. And then I'm working on actually doing a retreat for women to embrace their inner goddess, and really, be the seductress and to speak their partner's love language so they can have an amazing relationship. And so I think that's, it's a really big part of it is making sure that you guys know how to speak the right love language. Otherwise, you'll be unhappy.
I love that. And I think, yeah, it's way deeper than like this person will be good with this person, connection, boom, go on dates, good luck. This is a holistic sense of, hey, here's some other, ways that you can build a deeper bond with each other and have this actually be a lasting relationship. I love that. You did mention one thing. You mentioned NLP. And this is something that I know a lot about, but other people probably don't. So do you want to break down just a little bit what NLP is and how that can benefit someone?
Sure. So it's neuro linguistic programming. And so, my background is in NLP. So, you learn different ways to use it so you can change your perception of the world. So, like the value system that I use is all based on NLP. It's based on creating like a great relationship, but even like the words that we use, like it can be used to persuade somebody, not in a bad way, but in a good way. And so, with a combination of NLP and reading body language, you can have a really great date. And also, like, just really knowing how to talk to a person. So, yeah, I definitely incorporate that into the matchmaking and into the dating coaching.
I love that. What's something like if you had to just give one little sneak peek of what you would be able to coach with NLP and how it can like, really help someone? Is there any, I don't want to say it's a tactic, but maybe it is that that's worked with a lot of people and really, elevated their game in the sense of building a relationship with a woman?
Yeah. So I mean like the whole value system is based on the NLP value system. And that's what we work with, which is so there's an exercise that I do that's 100% like based on NLP, which is like taking your values and then realigning them. What's your top value? What's your next value? What's your next value? And realizing that like your values are misaligned. So like for instance, if you have rich as your top value, well, that's great, but that's not going to really work. So it's like really figuring it out and then realigning the values. And you can even use like some hypnosis to actually retrain your mind for success. So like the combination of that. So I work with my clients. I actually throw in, because my background is a hypnotherapist, I throw in some like guided meditations to help them to get clear on what they really want and what's important to them.
Yoga, NLP, hypnosis. You have a lot of stuff under your belt. That's impressive.
I do, yeah. I get when I decided I didn't want to do acting anymore, I kind of got lost for a couple of years, and I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna work on myself and
Yeah.
and heal myself. And so I got certified for everything under the sun that was like a little woo woo. So yeah.
Well, walk me through a little bit about hypnosis because I'm not very familiar with, what that looks like and what that can do for you.
Sure. So hypnosis is a way for you to get in touch with your subconscious mind. So a lot of the time we're in our conscious mind, which is like blah, 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 right? It's telling us all these things. And so when you go and you close your eyes and you breathe all the way in and you relax, you get into a neutral mindset, which means you don't hear all the blah, 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 blah going on. And so when we get somebody into that relaxed state, that state of trance, then we can talk to their subconscious mind and give them suggestions that will help them or make them a better version of themselves. So sometimes we get stuck in patterns and loops and we get in like a negative mindset. So being able to like reframe is definitely very, very helpful.
I love that. Yeah, there's so much value and so much, things that I want to dive deeper into. And one of them is hypnotherapy, it's NLP. Um, yeah, well, I'm just curious, how'd you get started in that after, being an actress?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a bit of a longer story, but
Yeah.
so okay, so I was acting. I did it for years. Like I actually had like a pretty successful career. I was like, opposite Kate Hudson in a movie. I did How I Met Your Mother, Desperate Housewives. I always had like a small little part playing a stripper, a hooker, a porn star, like one of those roles. And so, it just kind of took a toll on me because to have a business, and you know this like as an entrepreneur, right? To have a business or to be like actually pretty good at something, but your life is in somebody else's hands and you have absolutely no control over it. And I got propositioned by the casting couch. I got, like being a woman in Hollywood is definitely not easy. And it just took a toll. I sabotaged and I didn't want to do it anymore. I honestly did a bunch of terrible movies, destroyed my career, and like just I got a bunch of tattoos. I didn't want to do it. I ended up getting into a relationship with a guy. We got really serious. I fell madly in love with him. He didn't want to have kids. I did. I ended up breaking it off because I wanted to have kids. And when I broke it off, he was a recovered addict and he turned back to drugs. And we ended up having this like tormented relationship back and forth. He changed his mind, decided he wanted to have kids. We got back together, but he was on a bunch of drugs. I tried to save him, I couldn't. We ended up trying to get back together. Within 6 months, he actually passed away, and it did a number on me because I really, really, really loved him, and it was probably the first time in my life that I had experienced like unconditional love. So I went through this really dark period where I literally blamed myself for his death because I felt like I broke up with him. He turned to the drugs. That was my fault. And so I went and I tried everything under the sun to make the pain go away. And that's when I like got really deep into NLP. I got really deep into hypnosis, the Kundalini yoga. And what happened is I healed myself and I actually became like a better version of me. And then literally like I started working on manifesting a partner within 6 months. I got into a serious relationship within a year. I was married, pregnant, and like boom, it happened so quickly. And I guess that's kind of how I got how I got from there to here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that story and being vulnerable. I know that can definitely relate to a lot of people and a lot of women out there. I feel like I hear the story over and over again. It's people going back to a partner where they see potential in them. Why do you think that is? And I guess a question for you, maybe for our female audience, is how do you know, hey, this is not going to work out? When do you draw the line instead of going back?
Yeah. So I think looking back on it now, knowing what I know is do you know about the different attachment types?
I've just started hearing about this, and I was like, and people have told me, Jesse, do some research on this stuff. So I would love for you to share whatever you would like.
Okay, so I was fearful avoidant. So there's four different attachment types, right? There's secure, which is what we all want to be. And then there's fearful avoidant, which is you get really, really close to somebody and then it gets too close and you run away. And so I was doing a lot of that. And then there's anxious, preoccupied, just to throw it in there, which is like where you're kind of clingy and very attached to the person. And then there's dismissive, where you're completely opposite and you are not really giving 100% into the relationship. So I was fearful avoidant for years, and I would like date somebody, get back together. It was like a bad Taylor Swift song. And so, yeah. So for me, like that was the thing is I needed to work on myself and become secure. And that's probably why none of my relationships were working because I wasn't secure. And as soon as it would get serious, I would run away because it scared me.
Hmm. And you mentioned a big part of that was you took time to work on yourself, become the best version of yourself. And for you, that looked like diving into these different avenues to get better. Sounds like mentally, but also physically with yoga and stuff. I guess, in addition to that, were there books or were there podcasts or other kind of, personal development that you're working on that maybe someone could take away from this podcast and be like, oh, that sounds like a great book that I would love to read?
Yeah, I remember like one of the books I really liked was The Seed of the Soul. That was a really good book. Um, and then I started like reading Attached, getting into the relationship books.
I'm going to change topics real quick. Online dating. Let's just for a few minutes
Yeah.
dive into this. What does that look like? I mean, you're a celebrity matchmaker, so I'm guessing you don't. Maybe you help them create a profile as well, and they can go on there to find dates. But from my understanding, you're the one that's like specifically helping them set them up, so they have to do none of the work, and they just say, "Hey, here's a date in place, and meet here." I guess first, let's clarify that. What does that look like when you match someone up, and then let's talk about online dating.
Yeah, so it's a complete done for you service if they do the matchmaking. So we literally book the reservation, we schedule the date, we make every like you don't have to like think. But I do have coaching clients that I work with, and I have worked with people on their online dating profiles.
Okay, let's dive into that. Do you see that as being, besides, I'm guessing the done for you is sounds like the most success would come out of that because you're already pre-vetting, you're doing all the work, and so all the heavy lifting is off, right? So someone like me, I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing. I don't got to think about this stuff, and I get to go meet my future partner. But for someone that's in the weeds, swiping, what does that look like? And do you see a high success rate and maybe some tips in the online dating world?
Yeah, so here's the problem with online dating is they're setting you up to be single forever. So, and there's actually a bunch of lawsuits going on right now because it's like the thank you next culture, right? Where there's always going to be somebody hotter, there's always going to be somebody richer, there's always going to be someone more charismatic, funnier, whatever you're looking for, you're always going to be able to find somebody and you get addicted to it. And I've literally seen it before, heard about it. People are on their dates and they're on the app texting somebody else while they're on a date because it's like so addictive. And so that's the issue with the online dating. But, that being said, I have heard success stories from it. And so people have found success with online dating. I think the secret of being successful with online dating is if you do meet somebody and they're awesome and you're having a great time and you really like them, cancel the app. Like get off of it because it's
This is
so
good.
addictive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so true. So would you say overall that online dating, what do you think has had a more net negative impact? Online dating apps or platforms like Instagram?
Oh, huh. Yeah, they
We're like
both
they
definitely.
both definitely hurt hurt
Well,
relationships in
this is the thing
society.
too, is like now with AI, it's girls and guys are like posting AI pictures that aren't even themselves. And so people are like literally attracted to an AI, like a bot, and then they're like, "Oh, well, this girl doesn't look like her pictures." Well, of course not. She's not a robot. Like so that's I mean like Instagram is tough because everybody's using filters and I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm like, oh, I look so much better with the snatched filter. Like we're all using it. Like let's be real about it. But like when you meet them in person, you don't look exactly the same. And so that's really doing a number, I think, on dating in general. And then, yeah, the apps are just getting people. It's like an addiction. It is an addiction. Like, I remember when I was single, I was on the apps. And, as a woman, if you go on the app, you get like 200 guys hitting you up. It's like more than that, even. It's like, oh my God, this is like a full time job. Like, it gets exhausting, which is why a lot of the women actually work with us, is because they're like, I don't have time for this nonsense. So yeah, yeah, but it is what it is. People have found love through apps, and I don't want to say that you can't because you totally can.
hmm Yeah, one of my best friends met his now wife on Hinge. They're incredible. They met originally on Hinge, and then they moved it to Instagram. And that was like kind of the vetting process. Because I feel like Instagram, like nowadays, is almost a resume. And so they saw that they both like fitness, and then I think she DM'd him about a workout, and they started talking, and then it was more natural. So yeah, I think there is some kind of formula that could be more beneficial than just going on kind of almost blind dates with someone that doesn't even look like them in their pictures off of a dating app. But it is an interesting, time now, especially like you said, with AI and so many filters that is this real? Is it not? Um, Gosh, so true. I guess
Uh,
what I want to kind of go ahead.
Oh yeah, well I will say this, like your story made me think of this. So scientifically proven, when we have things in common with a potential partner, they become more attractive. And the more things you have in common with a partner, the more attractive they become. And if you have absolutely nothing in common, then they're not as attractive. Yes.
Totally, I mean, it totally makes sense. Um, this is a side question I have for you because I've been in this situation, but a lot of my friends are also in this situation. Like you said, especially on apps or even on Instagram, if you reach out to a woman, especially if she's attractive, she's having so many people reach out and hit her up, right? So she's overwhelmed. She's got a lot going on. But when do you know? There's obviously the obvious, like if she doesn't respond to you for, a certain amount of time, like leave it alone, she's not into you. But is there a time where it's like, all right, maybe she's just busy and you should not keep pursuing? Or like, is there some kind of, I want to say a formula, because for me, I'm, entrepreneur brain, everything's a framework or a formula. That's not how relationships really work. But in the sense of, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, hey, you reach out, she doesn't reach back out to you. So is there a certain time where you just know, hey, this is not someone that's interested in you, even though maybe you matched or there was conversation in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I think communication is key in any relationship. So even if it's like not even a relationship, it's like a new budding thing. And if she's not responding back and you're looking back at your text and like you're always the one texting and she's just responding back with like one word or something, okay, women like a chase. And when it's too easy, and I see this all the time with my clients, they get uninterested. So I had a client that was literally, he was he was like had a great date with this girl and they were super happy with each other, and then he ruined it between then and the next potential date because he was texting her, oh, can you meet on Tuesday? I made a reservation here, I sent some flowers, I did this, I did that, and why aren't you getting back to me, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's the anxious preoccupied, and girls hate that. Like it's like, ew, he's desperate, and desperate energy is gross. Nobody wants it. Yeah. So let her chase you. Like if she's not responding, like let it go. And then like maybe 3 or 4 days later, get back to her. But you definitely don't wanna like overdo that.
I love, yeah, you totally understood what I was like. Did that question make any sense? But you totally understood that. And I feel like that happens a lot to a lot of people. Okay. So, Jacqueline, this has been fun. Like, I feel like this is half therapy session for me and relationship coaching. So, I appreciate you on that. And also, people are going to hear this. They're going to connect with your story. They're going to want to know more. How do people reach out to you? But first, before you answer that, we are a community of go givers, meaning we want to provide value to you. So, what are some projects that you're working on? Or what are some connections that someone can potentially make for you when they reach out to you and say, hey, Jacqueline, listen to this podcast on, Growth House. I loved XYZ. Also, I would love, to connect you with this person, or he's a resource for you before they ask a question. No one's going to reach out and say, hey, can I pick your brain?
Okay. Yeah. So feel free to go to my Instagram, the Fairy Matchmaker. So my middle name is Fae, Fae. So it's Faery, Fairy spelled like that, Matchmaker. And then, for matchmaking, it's IDL diamondclub.com. And yeah, like I have like some really cool retreats coming up. I have my ride or die relationship blueprint retreat coming up in August. And then also for women, I have a goddess retreat coming up to embrace your inner goddess. So yeah, DM me, reach out to me.
I love it. And then just real quick for the women, who would be the target clientele that should, I mean, anyone could obviously reach out to you, but the target demographic for who would be coming to like your retreats and stuff?
Cool. Yeah. Anyone who really is ready to meet their ride or die, and someone who wants to be the best version of themselves and to find their partner.
I love it. Jacqueline, I appreciate you being on the podcast. Shout out our friend Blair for connecting us. And we'll be in touch. I'll have to, you're in LA area still?
Oh no, I'm in South Florida.
South Florida. Okay. Well, next time I'm in
I
South
was
Florida,
in LA. Yes.
I'll reach out.
Cool.
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Jesse Ray with the Growth House podcast. And we're going to have all the links to connect with Jacqueline in our under the podcast description.